Hi, listeners. Luke here. Just wanted to give you a quick update. Unfortunately, due to internet troubles on my end, we lost the last 5 minutes of this particular interview with Keith. But I want to encourage you still to listen to the entire thing because there is a ton of useful insights. I've also shared a few resources, and we've discussed a lot of important techniques and just general useful stuff that you'll enjoy if you're learning Chinese, which I assume you are. So I'm sure we'll catch the full interview next time we get a chance to chat to Keith down the line. But for now, enjoy the podcast. So why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, how you found us as well. That's always interesting to know.
All right, I'll start off from about 2 years ago in New York. I've been working for quite some time as a test prep instructor, students trying to get into whatever programs, top programs, even in graduate school. So we're talking GMAT and GRE. I had quite an intensive immersion experience in bringing my own scores up to as close to perfection as possible for that industry. There's a game-like quality. Some people get really addicted to video games, and I think when you approach learning right, then you can tap into that same kind of properties. Well, so I'd also been working on a master's in math education, it so happens, and I got a job before COVID struck at an international boarding school just north of New York. That was very interesting. We had students from well over 70 countries there, and we even had a not yet speaking English cohort of students, and it was very difficult. I'm teaching math. I have students everywhere from 8th grade to seniors. They know everywhere from pre-algebra to calculus. They speak 7 or 8 languages in a class. It's virtually impossible. I kind of struggled to keep them all engaged. But we transferred midway through the semester. The students all had to leave to their respective countries. And we managed the rest of the semester online. So I picked up a lot of sort of, push out droves of small content online, sorts of skills. And then I moved back to my hometown of Wichita, Kansas, and trying to see what I could do to start setting up some real internet-only, passive income-only types of ideas. And throughout all of this, I've been in a relationship, and she, CJ, she's from Taiwan, native Taiwanese speaker, and she's used to the traditional characters, but my attempts to try to learn the language, to learn Mandarin, they were just bouncing off of all the materials I was finding, and it was half-hearted. I sort of, became half-hearted about it. I kept trying to spark my own interest in it, kept trying a new bargain book or, a different app. I found on Zoom a teacher, who was just getting started, and I tried scheduling a few classes with her. It was ridiculously cheap. And it was then I realized just how poor my ability to speak in cadence was, with an entire sentence. And she didn't have much of a method or an approach. And this is something you comment on in your system when you say, tell your tutors what it is that you're wanting to work on, help them help you, kind of an attitude there. Yeah. And so I started trying to really answer the question, just how could I even go about helping a tutor to help me? I don't know. I really don't know where to start. So I went through a few classes with her, just trying to see if I could grasp anything from attempting the cadence of the somewhat randomly chosen sentences she had in a set. And it was at that time I stumbled into Mandarin Blueprint. And as I was trying to spark myself into things, as I felt particularly aware of the difficulties I was having and starting to understand a little bit more why, I happened to find the Mandarin Blueprint very engaging. He had a 30-day trial at the time, and I started blowing through the pronunciation. I started seeing the overall logic and coherence. I started getting results fast, and that's great that you provide that. Here's some now to satisfy you. there's more down the road, but you won't even care about promises if you're not getting some right now.
Right, right.
And I got some, you know, I subscribed to the whole enchilada well before the time limit ran out. I knew that I'd be able to continue with this through and through. And I think, like you mentioned it yourself, aside from bits and pieces of other languages, this is the second language I'm ever truly learning. Aiming to become fluent in, aside from English.
Mm.
So there you have it. Those are the main things that kind of brought me to Mandarin Blueprint. And then there's the 9 weeks since. So where would you like to go next?
Wow. Wow. I mean, I guess, so your main reason, just so if I can sum that up, your main reason for learning Chinese is essentially for your other half. Is that the main reason, would you say?
The main reason is for the other half. Initially it was, and I'd say still is, emotionally. I visited Taiwan for a couple of weeks, and the whole family lives in the entire floor of the apartment complex, you know, where they're at. And, you know, I would love to be able to go back and actually interact with them in more than a awkward smile and nod kind of.
They got no English at all, or just a little bit here and there?
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
The father, the oldest of the whole bunch, he once said to me on a video chat, first thing he ever said to me was, "Welcome to Taiwan." And that was the only thing he's ever said to me, really. But at some point in his life, he had been a bit more fluent, but had since pretty much lost it all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking for someone with experience in this area, having a Chinese wife and Chinese family that do not speak a lick of English, it makes a huge difference. Obviously, I mean, you know that anyway, but to actually maybe the breadth and depth of the difference it does make is not quite something that you can describe. It makes people from strangers that smile awkwardly to people that you have that basically respect you and admire you, and you have a deeper connection with, and that deepens your connection with your other half as well. And it's just it's something so worthwhile. So that's great as a main reason. And like, as you sort of hinted at there, Keith, like you develop other reasons as you start to get good, get better, and start to consume the language and realize that it's actually possible, right?
Very much. I've taken a strong interest in the calligraphy and things related to it. All things in that sort of small, that sort of compact, sophisticated visual world. And I've never really been a visual person before, but I've enjoyed writing, as you can see from the lengthy posts that I leave on your website.
Yeah.
And doing it in this different way, you know, I can definitely start to sense how my mind is really literally getting rewired in some ways. And so taking a look not just at the breadth of the Chinese writing system and also the traditional system, but, you know, sort of logo and design in general, and all the various twists and artistry having to do, you know, for everything from emojis, you know, to chemical formulas and structures and whatnot into the Chinese writing. It's just opened up a huge world of fascination for my noodle. You know, just really lights up my mind.
Yeah, I'd just like to note as well for people listening that in the latest podcast that still hasn't come out, I do address one of Keith's latest comments, and I believe that's 147, episode 147 that's coming out soon.
That's right.
And I believe the first one was 144, 145. I can't quite remember. But anyway, it's somewhere in there if you want to listen to Keith's comments. There's a few of them now. And why don't you, obviously, we don't have, you know, we can go into as much detail as you like, but what can you give us like the gist of your journey so far with us? Like, how long have you been with us? And sort of maybe sum up some of your comments that you've been sending. What have you been doing with the knowledge that you've gained with us?
Certainly. To sum it up, I'm like playing a game of pinball, and at least there are borders to the pinball machine. I'm searching, with my mind. I have a natural sort of drive, but I do get kind of tired of one thing or another at times. And I have to choose between discipline, and, and continuing to practice something, and enjoyment, which is a vital ingredient for, your own sense of positive feedback and the learning um, process. It's been 9 weeks, and as I've gone through with this program, I've been, I think, more immersed and longer, and in more ways than at any time during my college experiences, or even during my graduate level test prep, immersion experiences. And that has helped to sharpen and clarify and broaden and bring a lot of things, to my attention when it comes to a learning process in general. Now, so far as Mandarin Blueprint is concerned specifically, I'm learning the characters. I'm taking a stronger attention to the writing because I enjoy it. It's hard for me to say whether or not it's dramatically improved anything. I'd say, anyone who's been doing it full time for 2 months is probably, by whatever means they approach it, going to be more or less at the same level of overall comprehension. But writing has helped me to make connections and to enjoy the experience in ways that people who don't write aren't going to experience. Picking up the vocabulary has been fascinating. Taking the HSK tests, and to clarify, I hadn't taken any official ones. There's no convenient station nearby, but there are full-length, official, archived official versions, and so I have no problem gauging my progress by those. And I've just passed the HSK 3, just shy of 9 weeks. I didn't feel like I had total comprehension or mastery, but I was able to use some test-taking tactics in addition to sparing bits of comprehension as I listened to the reading section. But as I worked on the listening section, but the reading and writing sections were just fine. I felt like I had control of what was going on. This latest week, I decided, well, okay, I've learned close to 600 characters in 2 months, and a lot of that was just working on mastering the Hanzi system. It's very interesting, and I understood the principle there. It's like, it's not always going to take me 2 months to learn 600 characters, and wow, that's blazing fast compared to a lot of programs.
Well, one thing that you need to point out as well, we need for the listeners, is
Sure.
It's not just learning to 600 characters, because there's a lot of different levels to that. It's
sure.
Keith has not just learned how to recognize 600 characters, he's learned how to write them and pronounce them accurately as well, which is an even bigger achievement.
Absolutely. And the writing, when I look through the Anki deck, I get a little bit pickier. At first, I'm like, I don't want to see these multiple times. I've got so many cards coming through. I just want to blow through them, and get them to the next day where I can choose, okay, do I want to see this card again or not? At that point in time, I start gauging myself, is the entire written form of the character appearing in my mind? If I had to write it down right now, would I get it too correct? And what I've noticed with the writing practice is either the entire character will just sort of melt into place in my mind's eye, every stroke, everything, every component or radical, or not. I might know the character, I might know the pronunciation and the meaning, but if the entire written form doesn't also appear there, I'll at least mark it as a hard. But even marking it as a hard, it's still usable. I'm trying to link, I've written recently, I'm even trying to link together some of the stories where you have the same phony working in place. I wrote a comment, I think around level 49, at the end of level 49, I'm comparing the words for cyan, qing, with the words for, what is it? I think it's for light, qing, xiang.
Light is in the opposite of heavy, is that right?
Light is in the opposite of heavy.
Yeah, qing.
Yes, and I even made a mistake initially learning that word, thinking it was visual light, and then I had to go back and correct it. But correcting the Hans that are changing it takes a few seconds. At first, the Queen of England, who I have for a QI actress, she's outside, uh, she's wanting to know what color the moon is. We've got this strange character over a moon character. So, anyways, I don't want to belabor the whole process, but I have her interacting with various other components of the story. You know, she's uh, the character for please. Sorry, the character for light. Yes, is Xing is first tone. For please, that's right, is third tone. Xing. And at first, I had Xing mistaken for a first tone. Xing. So I had the Queen of England outside with three different stories going on about, you know, the color of the moon and wanting some visual light so she could get the candy out of a dispenser that was attached to, right, whatever my story was. And, you know, trying to ask someone please for help, you know, because she was doing a lot of work trying to get that candy. And then later on, she didn't need visual light from the moon, which became Xing, clear. Oh no, sorry. Clear. Yeah, that's also first tone. Xing, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was an eyedropper next to it. So we got an eyedropper over the moon. It clears up to cyan color. Now it's brighter, and she can see. But oh, we didn't need light after all. We needed it to be more lightweight. We had to move the Queen of England inside, or have her at least look inside that house from outside. Anyways, connecting the stories all together is making it. The bottom line here is it's making things more accessible. When I'm studying a character now, where I'm looking on Anki, not only am I seeing, do I know this character, you know, strongly, but also it's much easier for my mind to then take a quick look at characters similar to it, with a similar sound or a similar structure. Just random practice, you might say, of things that are at least loosely associated with my brain. And I think that I'm going to keep going with that idea of kind of blending scenes together to make even larger sort of overall mega scenes.
Yeah, well, a couple of our members referred to this process, and one, I believe it was Will Rayleigh, who's a big commenter on the site. Refers to, he sent a message, refers to them as TV series, essentially. So you have, like, they're all interconnected, the episode 1, episode 2, you know. And I used to love that. I used to love it when when I was learning using the method, like when my characters would join together. And it is nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's nice to have one thing that's nice about this memory palace technique is that you forget a part of the story, or you mess it up, you make a mistake. It's not the end of the world. You just go in there and you make a small tweak, and it's all right. It's right. So I'm glad you're enjoying that aspect of it. When you joined, say, was it 9 weeks ago you started with us?
Yes.
How many hours a day on average would you say you've been doing?
I would say easily 3+ hours, relative to, you know, your notion that maybe you only have about 3 hours of optimal learning time anyways.
That was our
Easily
guess.
3 hours a day. So that's averaged with the days where there's been a few days where maybe I've only spent 1 hour, but even averaged with those few days. Yeah, easily surpassing this 3-hour mark. Definitely getting into the gamers kind of, you know, and you know, like I'm a rat, you know, pushing myself to exhaustion, you kind of mindset.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and 9 weeks, roughly 3 hours a day on average. And when you started with us, what level would you say you had?
Less than HSK1. HSK1 was still garbled. I knew I had to peck and scratch for individual words. My pronunciation was okay when I did know a word, but really I was, you know, just grasping at straws and more or less totally unable to enter into any kind of engagement with either reading, listening, speaking, you name it. So, and that was, I would say, maybe just after 2 years of bouncing off of things from time to time, you know, trying to spark a real effort for a week and then just kind of falling flat. So yeah, after 2 years, not even at HSK1, just really failing to discipline myself to any other means. And then now past HSK3 in 2 months.
What was it that kept causing you to give up on these things? just the boredom? Was it too complicated? Nothing staying in your brain? Was it, what was it?
Nothing staying in the brain. It just seemed random.
Mm-hmm.
Random introductions to words.
Yeah.
Basically, just keep doing it, and I knew that, yeah, that kind of approach would work, but it just, from a test prep point of view, it felt wrong, very wrong. Not enough juice for the squeeze. I know that Mandarin is a notoriously difficult language, maybe quite, controversially superseded perhaps only by Japanese or Cantonese, depending on how you look at it. But it just seemed that, okay, I don't care how hard it is. I'm learning it. I'm going about doing it wrong.
It's like a personal vendetta, but like a positive kind of one. So I'm going to defeat this language.
Yes. Well, yeah. Just get into the groove. Yeah. I'm not in the groove. I know when I'm in the groove, and I'm not in it. And so I just kind of kept waffling around, doing other things that I was gaining a sense of, result from in life, and trying to pursue the Mandarin. But then, but finally, you just keep sparking at it. You find the groove, I think, and you're able to go through, go to it full steam.
So where do you think you're going to? Do you think it? Let's see. What's your goals with Chinese now? Now that you think you've found a method that works, you're smashing your way through the course at ridiculous pace. Where do you see yourself thinking like, okay, I'm really happy with my level now. Maybe I'll move on to another language, or I'll slow down and move on to something else. Like what do you want to be with Chinese?
I think that's actually a very difficult question for me to answer. My mind is moving in a lot of directions with an indefinite exposure to Chinese. It's difficult for me to think of an end, and especially when it comes to things like calligraphy and logographics, when it comes to possibly engaging in some kind of test prep venue. China loves test prep, and they just do it, batch processing, just huge classrooms.
Yeah.
But when I think about that, it's difficult for me to say when am I going to arrive at a level where I've accomplished that, and then what? Well, then I would just be doing what I'm doing now, just trying to live the good life and enjoy myself. But I'm trying to integrate all of this into that good life as it is. So, I mean, maybe I've inadvertently answered your question a bit, kind of along the way.
Maybe I've phrased it badly. Let me rephrase it. So, like, what would you like to be able to do in the language, and what would you use it for? You mentioned test prep. Maybe you want to use it for work. Do you want to be able to read novels in Chinese? Are you more interested in consuming the language or interacting with certain people? This sort of thing.
All of the above. There's my girlfriend's family in Taiwan, and then be able to travel around in China and Taiwan and be able to speak the language. To be able to read, when I was 9, I read English translation of Mencius, and I thought, well, this is a remarkable philosopher, and the only philosopher to date who ever really extensively talks about his mom and her influence on his life. Now that's different. It's an interesting kind of mind to read. Being able to read that and a few other similar works, in the original Chinese, go to a Confucian temple and actually read the preserved, characters on the walls, those sorts of things. I'm finding that maybe the second half of my entire life, might just be, okay, let me, here's this language, and I feel like I'm a very mental or cerebral kind of person, and I think I don't really see an end to the ways in which I can immerse myself in this. It's very old. it's very layered. It's always going to be rewarding in some way. I'll keep finding new things, and then of course, with developing some kind of, I think, online aspect of business, that idea of, having fun with the calligraphy, related things, with logo graphics and print on demand, possibly finding a way to, make a very entertaining YouTube video, or, who knows, coursework for even related aspects of Mandarin, like, that might have to do with the test spread. Right? Who knows? There's a lot of things I'd like to do with it. I don't really see an after, kind of situation.
It's living in the now, just enjoying the actual process, and that's the key, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Get to the point where I'm able to enjoy continuing to ingest things. That's probably a good thing. I'd like to get to the point where I can enjoy the conversation and enjoy the book and enjoy the etc. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the actual course itself, is there any just general comments you had, any specific parts about the course that you had that have had a big impact on you that you haven't already mentioned? Anything at all there?
There are so many, I think part of the genius, when I say genius, I mean perpetual notion. You guys, I think, have really continued to come out with big bit and little bit all over the place.
Big bit, little bit. Can you explain that?
Well, big bucket, little bucket. I mean, you have big, brilliant ideas like the OCLO, the character learning order,
right?
Optimal. That's a big bit. A big bit is the Hansa movie myth. That's huge. But then, little bits, like I mentioned earlier, maybe only 3 hours of optimal learning time. I'm like, okay, that has nothing to do with Mandarin specifically, but that's a little bit. That kind of helps me to gauge myself a bit more realistically. Or the emails that you guys send out, I think maybe starting around level phase 3 or phase 4, those are super helpful. I kind of crave learning a bit more grammar, and the way that you present it, I think, is very timely. And at the end of a level, and I see the sort of grammar expose that you have in the email, it's very digestible. Maybe that's a medium bit, being able to time this, this infusion of grammar, just the right stage. It's like I can almost feel you guys knowing with absolute certainty that at this level I'd be able to understand that sentence that you put down pretty easily. It's wonderful. Timing things, the way you're sequencing things, I can't point to a specific instance rather than to say there's hundreds, thousands of instances where you are timing things very, very well. I could write a book glorifying the Mandarin Blueprint. It would be easy to go back and research and say, and this is why, and this is why. Here's another example why. There's Sherlock Holmes. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said through the voice of Sherlock Holmes, it says there are 3 basic principles to becoming a good detective. One of them is developing a keen habit of observation. You got to actually notice the physical things around you in your environment. You guys are helping with that by presenting the words in order where it's easy to notice these similarities from one character to the next. Oh, they have these 2 characters have a similar meaning or similar components in them or a similar pronunciation. Okay, making it easier for us to actually observe the characters. And then you're giving us these sentences and these passages and whatnot, more and more things to physically notice. The second thing Sherlock Holmes says is then you've got to be able to make logical deductions about the things that you're noticing. And you guys make it explicit in countless ways how the language is very logical. One of your emails says, kan shu, look at a book. That's read a book. Okay, that's logical. There's so many things like that. You're helping us to make logical inferences. It's not always going to be a personal sense of logic, but I can see the Chinese sense of logic. The third thing Sherlock Holmes says is that, and then you should study thousands upon thousands of criminal case files so that anything that you look at in the future starts to resemble something you already know. And yes, of course, you're doing that too. Close to 6,000 sentences to boot, already almost 5,000 words, over 1,500 characters just at present. through your intermediate level, you're giving us those thousands and thousands of case files. When I finish your intermediate course, that's just enough to just get the vocab into my head. I still have oodles of things to go back through. You're at 147 podcasts now, and I've listened to, I think, 10. A lot of podcasts, a lot of little nuggets in those podcasts. Never know when I'm going to hear one that I think is a nugget to me. A lot of little comments maybe made by some of the other students. Haven't even taken a look at the forum. I do wonder if there was a way to host maybe learners practicing with learners. I don't know how smart that would be, but at this stage, trying to have a few piecemeal bits of dialogue with my girlfriend, I am starting to feel, wow, okay, now it's definitely starting to become a very appropriate time for me to practice with another speaker. And even if it was practicing with someone else who's also still at a pretty fluent level, I think I know enough, I'd be able to recognize what they're trying to say on the course material, and vice versa. We'd at least have that nervous practice. I don't know, but maybe is that a topic that you guys have seen opened up on your forum?
Yeah. A few people, definitely at least two people, just off the top of my head. I remember I've actually brought that up, and I think Al Roy and Christine Anderson, two people that have showed a big interest in that. Who knows? Our community is growing all the time. Maybe people are already starting to do this, so it's a good idea to maybe send out a message in the forum, say hi, and who knows? Worst thing that can happen is you just get a like from me and no one replies. There you go.
Okay, I just might try that. Then it's supposed to be easy enough to set up like a Zoom with a forum. Okay,
it's worth a try, I'd say. And in reference to what you said, you mentioned about wanting to learn to speak. You did say you had some issues with a tutor and not knowing what to do. Have you seen our output pack yet?
Perhaps not.
I made a video, I think it was about an hour long, maybe 45 minutes long, about how to use a tutor, and it comes with like downloadable PDFs on activities that you can do, writing and speaking. Have you not come across that?
It doesn't seem familiar. No. Where should I look for it?
I'll send it to you by email, and I'll actually make it publicly available on the download section of our website by the time this comes out as well. So if you go to the resources section of our website, anyone listening to this should be able to download it there. I've made it. We do that a lot, Phil and I. We just sort of make stuff. People like this, and then we forget to promote it, or it's just there somewhere hidden in the site. So I'll make that more available.
I probably have seen it and probably just diverted my attention to some other of the stuff.
Well, that's why it's good to try and check the forum every now and then, because that's where I post the personal stuff, just for like, oh, I've just made this for you guys, here you go. Phil or I will post something there, but yes, I will make that. I'll send that to you, make sure you get hold of that. And it's about time. You're now, where are you? What level are you? Finished the foundation course. You're in the intermediate course now, aren't you?
I'm in the intermediate course, and I've been writing out, I decided not to write the compound words, just the characters, the new characters in the intermediate course, so I could get the Anki started right away. I realized that I can use Anki just to learn the characters straight off and make a new movie every time I see a character. But for me, I realized it seems to be a little bit more efficient if I at least write the character and make a few novel connections that way, and then get the Anki going. So I'm at level 42, writing down the characters, day 2. So there's a lot of characters, but I want to get them in and rolling as soon as possible, so I can spend as much of the second 2 months as possible trying to find ways to push myself from the literacy stage to some kind of fluency. And let me ask you here, I feel like I could skip the intermediate course, and if I was just thoroughly masterful of that 80%, through to phase 5, I feel like, okay, if I just did nothing but practice with that, I could do quite a lot with that. Just, being able to speak, construct sentences, find a way to express what I'm trying to express. And in test prep, sometimes you have a session or three and you're cramming in a lot of new information. It sort of scrambles the brain. You have to consolidate afterwards. So even though I'm learning a lot more new words, I feel like it's making what I already know a bit less accessible for a short period of time.
Right.
Because my brain is struggling between, oh, should I be clever and use one of these new words that I haven't mastered yet? Or should I go back to one of these that are more familiar? So, I'm wondering at some point, I do need to slow down and not learn any new characters. It's convenient for me that you don't have your advanced course out yet so that I can stop and just work with everything from intermediate and consolidate that and really try to master that, make it accessible to my speaking. But let me ask you, different ways to prod and push myself towards fluency, both in listening and in speaking. I'd rather be fluent in listening first. I call it the Star Wars effect. You're listening to alien creatures speaking all their different languages. If you're in Star Wars, everyone just understands what everyone else is saying, no matter what alien language that they're speaking. That would be great with me. If I could go and just navigate with, just I know exactly what you're saying, and they can tell that I know exactly what they're saying. I just can't speak it. Either way, do you have recommendations for pushing my listening and my speaking skills?
Yeah, absolutely. From our experience over these years, the best way to improve your listening, and this is going to be annoying, best way to improve your listening is to listen to stuff that you understand every single day as much as you can.
Okay.
Conveniently, not things that, not in a way that will affect your life negatively or get you in arguments with your missus. I've been there. Trying to have earphones on all day, listening to Chinese. It doesn't work. But as much as you can, put Chinese in your ear. It doesn't have to be active listening, but the more active you listen, the faster your results will be. But then you have to weigh that up with the time that you have, the energy that you have, because you can't just be actively listening and maybe even shadowing, repeating it out loud as you listen. That's you have to weigh that up, and that's up to you, and you'll figure that out. But basically, you find we've just added a bunch of listening content. You'll find it they're basically all of the sentences within that level. You'll find at the end of the level, just in a big audio file all around. Phil put them all together, but they're
I've seen those. Yes.
Right. So a good idea for those. The reason why we had those is just put them on shuffle. And just have them, you don't have to put them in any order if you don't want to, just shuffle, just have them coming into your ears every now and then.
Okay, yeah, that does sound like that's something I can do, yeah.
And another key thing is don't turn it off, turn it down. Again, provided you won't disturb anyone. Just try not to turn it off, because then you forget you've turned it off and you just go about your day. If you turn it down, it's always there, but it's not bothering you or anyone else, but it's still, you notice it. And so when you're not busy anymore, you turn it back up. That's a tip we got from Katsumoto of alljapaneseallthetime.com. You'll find a ton of stuff there. If you're looking for immersion motivation or anything else about language learning, you should head to that site and read
Katsumoto.
Katsumoto, or just ajat.com, AJATT.com, all Japanese all the time. Just read every article on that site. He's just a fantastic writer, and not really doing much these days as far as I'm aware, but you get tons more ideas from him. But generally, that if you do that, and it's a slow subconscious process. That's the frustrating thing about listening and reading. The consumption side of things is you're making progress every single time you read a word or a sentence and you understand it. You're making progress every time, but it's not that kind of textbook tick the box progress. It's
right.
It's just going on somewhere, and eventually your brain's gonna spit out that grammar point or spit out that word perfectly, and you wouldn't even whoa, how did I do that?
Just keep tapping my mind in the direction I want it to go. Just
Yeah.
Just keep tapping. Okay.
To make sure it's understandable, to the same degree that we design the course. So at least 80%, preferably 98% is the sweet spot. But you want to be, if you focus hard on it, you want to be able to understand the message of most of what's being said. That's your say, that's your limit. And if
I can start doing that right away.
Yeah. And if our content's not enough, all the sentences that we provide, I recommend podcast programs, like graded podcasts, such as those on Pop-Up Chinese or Chinese Pod. I believe there's also Chinese Class 101. I think that's also another one that's very popular. And of course, there's all these the graded readers that come with audio. So Chairman's Bow,
Sure.
Decipher. There's just tons of it.
Well, I mean, I've absolutely taken a look at a great deal of the sort of links that you guys have provided, and I'll tell you that what I'm trying to do is to stay away from being distracted. If I see the words in front of me, I don't feel like I'm practicing listening skills. If I listen to your Anki sentences and I just close my eyes and cue up the next sentence and listen, totally different experience than if I have a chance to see the words first. You asked about my goals. I want to be able to watch Chinese cartoons. And I think that maybe, you could rank that as an even more difficult thing to do than to listen to Chinese news. I mean, I'm looking at the subtitles there's a cartoon called The Boonie Bears. And I started just frame by frame taking a look at the subtitles, and I realized, oh my gosh, I do know better than 80% of this, almost 100%. The only thing I'm really not knowing are the proper nouns, the names of the characters. Sure. Fortunately, they're repeated a lot. The characters are almost always beginning all their sentences with the name of whoever they might be addressing or referring to. Aside from those proper nouns, I'm reading that and I understand in many cases 100% of what's going on. But the instant I turn off those subtitles, I can't make out a thing what these characters are saying. Even if I replay that same 5-second segment, 5 times in a row, and I know what sounds and words to listen for, even then it's difficult with the way that cartoon characters, they're so emotional, their voices are so unusual, the speed and slurring is so much greater. And I realized, but kids can understand this easily, and they don't. I can read better than the kids who can understand this well. What am I, how do I get into that group? Well, and so I'm just
and the only way it's like stepping stones. Yeah, you don't want to just jump in and start just listening to that cartoon all day. I wouldn't recommend that. I would, just build your way up as much as you can. So so speaking and listening are kind of very closely related, because you don't get any chance to wait. You'd have to just take it at the speed that it's done. And with speaking, it's the same thing. You have to just speak. You can't just sit there going in the middle of a sentence, wait a minute, look up a word. It doesn't work that way. You even if you're with a paid tutor that's being really nice and polite, you still can't make them wait 10 minutes to say a sentence. You just got to do it, right? Same with listening. It just comes at you the speed that it comes at you, and that's it. That's what's difficult about these two things, but it's also a very simple, straightforward process in fact, listening is probably the most straightforward. You just listen, and it's just to make sure you basically understand it. With speaking, same sort of deal, really. Just start speaking more and follow those activities that we did that I'll send to you to make it interesting and also to help steer the lessons the way you want them to go and based on the content that you want. And it's going to be tough, just like reading was tough. Remember the first time you read a sentence in Chinese? It was very slow, right? It was very slow, and like even if you understood every single word, every single character very well, it's still just like, whoa. It's kind of hurts your brain, like trying to read all of it. It's a growth process, and any sort of growth involves pain. So
nicely put.
And but it's not, it's also very, very satisfying afterwards. So that's it really. That's all the advice I have on that. I think just speak more, listen more to stuff you understand.
Well, then one little fine point then on practicing to speak. Infants go through a gibberish phase, and this is before that part of the brain myelinates. I know Phil likes to talk about myelination, but different regions of the brain. Kids speak gibberish before that part myelinates. After it myelinates, like globally, that section of the brain, they speak with a lot less effort. The brain takes a lot less effort. I'm in a gibberish phase right now, and I gibber all kinds of fragments of sentences. I listen to people and I say, how would I say that little bit, in Chinese? But and I can do a simple, SVO, subject verb object translation without much difficulty. I'm trying to learn what I call the algebra of some of the grammar structures in the Mandarin, because it's sometimes it's a bit unexpected, but it does usually fit pretty nicely. But I still feel kind of woefully unprepared, even if I were to sit down with all the time in the world to write a sentence out, that I wouldn't know the grammar to manage it. And I am kind of curious about that. And maybe it's just because I haven't been paying enough attention to like some of the end of level emails, or maybe taking a look at, you have a lot of phase 3 and 4 grammar points. But when it comes to constructing longer sentences or reading longer sentences, I'm still, I feel like I'm still at a bit of a loss. It's not a time thing like it is with 90% of everything else, but more like no, I'm completely at a loss. I really don't know, even in an ideal world, how the grammar for a longer sentence should be. I know Phil says, okay, that's the kind of stuff you want to come about intuitively. On the other hand, when you guys write out your grammar bits, sorry, I hope bit is an okay way for me to call it, grammar lessons.
Yes, cool.
They're very timely and they're very easy to digest where you put them. And I think Phil has made the comment, you want to notice these as kind of not something to memorize, but kind of something that sort of makes sense of, or maybe gives you a moment of clarification, like, oh, aha, yeah, I kind of already felt that or knew that, and this is just kind of validating that. Or it's something I can notice looking forward, catch as catch can, but not really anything to emphasize. Why am I with these longer sentences? Is that something that's just like, let's say, par for the course?
Yeah.
You can expect that you will grasp the grammar of these longer sentences with some more sentence and passage practice, kind of a thing. Just be patient.
Yeah, I'm sorry to I don't have any sort of, it's not like a hack for this, unfortunately. As far as I'm aware personally, it's saying a sentence or understanding a sentence that's longer with more grammar, that's more complex, is generally harder. And it's even to understand it is harder. To produce it's even harder, especially if you haven't had much speaking practice. And there's not really much else I can say other than keep inputting, keep outputting. I'm sorry. I really wish I did have like a special trick, but
it's crazy. I know, I see it put out.
I will say this.
Chinese grammar is simple, but there's over 500 points in grammar.
I will say this, Keith. I will say this though. You've been doing this for 9 weeks. Okay.
Right.
So, and the thing, a very common thing that happens with members on our course, like such as yourself, that just smash their way through, and you do that because you have a part of you that's just very a go-getter. It's like, okay, I'm just going to smash my way through this, and you do. But often one of the things that I remind you not to forget is just to give yourself a pat on the back and appreciate how far you've come in such a small amount of time, and do not be hard on yourself. That's one of the, and I'd say trust me, I'm one of these people. So I know exactly what you're feeling. But what you consider to be impossible right now, in 2, 3, 6 months will be easy in a lot of ways. Not everything, but a lot of things, and to a surprising degree. So hang in there.
It's strange to have faith in it, but I definitely have faith. I definitely have faith in your system, just by all comparisons. That pat on the back, I will give it to myself. In my opinion, you've made it into something that can have a game-like quality for me, and I value that very much. Part of me, just like a gamer, I don't do speed runs of games, but other gamers, they have global record boards for who was able to play this level of Mario Kart the fastest. videos put out about how they're shaving off. And so I imagine that there's got to be some part of you guys that says, yeah, how would you even go about doing a speed run of learning Mandarin? You know, because you can only get to do it once. for one thing, you can't replay the same level over and over again.
Yeah.
How do you create a speed run for learning Mandarin? So that's the part of my brain that's kicking in and making me frustrated, and realizing that maybe, you know, like, well, I'll figure it out sooner or later, you know, in the months to come, staying on course. But
well, the way we'll figure that out is by people like you trying out new things, you know, because we made the thing, but we learn how to improve it mostly from hearing feedback and hearing experience. And people are always inventing new ways to improve how to use the material and how to make their way through it. And so we learn a lot from that. And I bet there's a ton of people that have done a bunch of cool things, a bunch of speed run type shaving off time improvements that we don't know about because they just don't talk that much on, you know. And so I encourage yourself and anyone else that's listening to share those little things. And you're the ones that we need for that area, you know, to improve things even further. So yeah, just stay the course and keep trying, keep experimenting, and follow your gut. I think is a big thing as well. As you get more of an understanding of the language and language learning, you develop kind of an instinct, and you should follow that instinct. Depending on, you know, I'll try this new thing. Luke and Phil told me to do this, but I feel that I think this way might be even better. So just try it out. Why not? Might improve on things.
You never know. You know, it's like I can't compare it. Your method would have worked out better, because if I do it my way, then I wouldn't know what it would have been like if I'd done it your way. But I'm not too afraid. You know, there are a lot of cases where I can see that, oh, okay, I get it now. That's why we're doing it this way.